On today's episode, Joe Biden is finally talking to Elon Musk. A new prototype Model 3 is going into production and Starlink gets a feature update. It happened for the first time in a long time. Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla, SpaceX and Twitter, just had a private meeting with U.S. government officials in Washington, D.C. on January 27. Two senior advisors to President Joe Biden were present, John Podesta and Mitch Landrieu, and the talk seems to have revolved around the government's push towards electrifying the U.S. transportation industry and how Elon Musk might help them get there, or how the government might help Elon to help them. Not much more has been reported about the content of the meeting, but the timing is in line with the Biden administration's push to move society away from fossil fuels and towards sustainable electricity as the primary energy source. Last August, President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law, a sweeping legislation that is attempting to boost employment and innovation over the next few years by investing heavily in green energy projects, including electric vehicles. Now, this bill alone represents so much money in potential tax incentives and grants that the whole industry immediately leapt into action so they could get in on the benefits, and Tesla was no exception. In addition to large tax credits for anyone purchasing an electric vehicle, the IRA introduces massive tax relief for companies that manufacture battery cells and modules inside the United States and offers up millions in government funding for EV charging infrastructure. Over the last couple of months, Tesla has slowed their plans in Germany in favor of taking advantage of new opportunities in the States. They have ramped up production and have broken ground on massive expansions at their American factories. They've modified their charging stations to include standard CCS adapters. Even Tesla partners like Panasonic are making new facilities in the US to support the coming boom. But it's one thing for a company to take advantage of a new policy and another to be called in to potentially help shape that policy. Given that Tesla is the leading EV company in the world, to by a large margin, it would be difficult for the Biden administration to build a strategy to promote EV use without at least consulting Elon Musk, and it certainly wouldn't be the first time Elon's worked with the U.S. government administration. Back in 2017, Elon took a position on two presidential advisory councils that were created for then President Donald Trump. According to Elon, he joined so that he could have some influence on the Trump administration and maybe get some real action on climate change done, and that's likely the truth. Elon might be criticized for many things, but he's always been very vocal in his work towards addressing climate change. The stint as a presidential advisor was short-lived when Trump pulled America out of the Paris Accords in the summer of 2017. Elon also resigned, and while the Trump administration was relatively friendly with Musk and his companies, we know Trump loved making money and going to space, two things Elon excels at. The Biden administration has been in 335 entirely different situation from the start. Musk and Biden haven't seen eye to eye, which is strange because both men are very pro-EV. One of Biden's first promises made in office was to electrify the entire government vehicle fleet. Part of this conflict is definitely related to the United Auto Workers Union, a major supporter of the Biden campaign. Musk has been very vocally critical of the giant union and its effects on the industry. Business leaders in general are usually opposed to labor organizations, but with the UAW making more or less constant effort to put pressure on Tesla, it's gotten to be a little personal for Musk, and by Biden has shown a clear bias towards unionized automakers like Ford. The president was filmed driving the F-150 Lightning prototype and praising the truck and his personal favorite company, General Motors, who the president credits with leading the electric car revolution, which, by the way, there is no evidence to support this claim. But regardless of the friction between the billionaire and President Biden, Elon's companies need the U.S. government and the U.S. government needs them. There is no other way for NASA to put astronauts into orbit than SpaceX. No other rocket that can launch their top-secret national security satellites into geosynchronous orbit than the Falcon Heavy, and by the same effect, without those government contracts there would be no SpaceX. This is generally how large companies operate, on equally large government contracts, so it's not surprising that Elon's companies have and continue to receive support regardless of his relationship with the current administration, and it's the fact that companies like Tesla and SpaceX receive this funding that makes the news of Musk meeting government officials make sense. The U.S. government has spent a wild amount of money to help Musk build his companies that are not just functional but dominating their industries. So aside from Tesla's outsized influence in the EV space, or probably because of that, having Musk weigh in on policies that would help influence the average citizen to adopt an electric car is a no-brainer. It does look like the Biden administration is willing to work with Tesla more and more as they make changes like redesigning their charging stations, and honestly the two organizations collaborating is a very good thing. If it keeps producing results like this, there's a lot of time left in 2023 and we'll likely hear about more meetings in Washington involving Musk and other industry experts. If Biden wants to make this push work, he's doing the smart thing by including Tesla in the planning. Tesla's mysterious Model 3 redesign project Highland is continuing to progress as public filings have pointed to the beginnings of a new production line being built at the company's facility in Fremont, California. Back in November 2022, a new production prototype of the Model 3 appeared just after news outlet Reuters printed details of something called Project Highland, which their sources claimed was a redesign of the Model 3. Back then the only things we had to go on was what the Reuters contacts told us, that the redesign was an attempt to lower the cost of the Model 3 by reducing the number of parts involved in its production, updating its infotainment display, and enhancing the vehicle's powertrain performance. Not long after that, filings with the city of Fremont were found that were made back in June 2022. They showed that Tesla was demolishing some equipment and facilities in preparation for a new hang-on line, a type of assembly line where the vehicle parts hang on to a moving feed as they progress through the stations. It looks like a demolition officially started in December 2022, though that's harder to pinpoint. What really points to that work being done are that filings for the new line labeled Highland BL3 whole demo were updated as recently as January 27, which seemed to point to the project still progressing at a good pace. Regardless of the massive amount of work Tesla has going on at facilities like Giga Texas, in addition to the new filings, though, another manufacturer's model was recently seen doing some road testing near Santa Cruz, about where the first production model was spotted in the wild back in November 2022. The exterior doesn't seem to have changed much, but that seems to be in line with what we know of the project, which made more specific mention of lowering the complexity of the interior and the head and brake lights. The Model 3 has been updated in little ways throughout its existence, so it wouldn't take a whole lot of effort or changes to its design to make it efficient enough for this year's production push. Now let's not forget, this is a big year for Tesla. They are starting production of the Cybertruck, expanding production on the Tesla Semi, and ramping up production of the Model Y and Model 3. Of course, this isn't even the only redesign we know Tesla is working on right now. Earlier in January, Tesla's chief designer Franz von Holthausen had an interview where he talked briefly about his ongoing work with the Model 3, but also the Model S, which he hinted was going to be going through a similar efficiency-focused design change when Tesla had the time to focus on it, that is. But it looks like the Model 3 is a much bigger priority for the EV company right now. It is one of their cheapest vehicles, and with the new U.S. tax incentives and rebates on the table for new buyers, it's exactly the right time to refresh when one of the company's oldest designs, not only to make them cheaper to produce, but also hopefully cheaper to purchase for new EV buyers. Starlink keeps getting new features with mobile users in mind, and a new feature continues that trend. You can now tell your Starlink to go to sleep. This new power-conserving feature was added just last week and allows the user to program a sleep schedule, which will stop the unit from using power for connecting to the internet, and more crucially, its snow melting feature, which is a huge power draw. This is very clearly meant for Starlink RV users and folks who live way off the grid. Generally isolated users and campers use expensive propane for heating and limited power generation, so it makes sense that those people would like the chance to tell their Starlink hardware to not burn through their fuel just to keep snow off at night. SpaceX made sure to warn folks that they'd likely have to clear the snow off themselves before the Starlink hardware could start up in the morning. But again, the type of people who need this sleep feature aren't strangers to that sort of work, and the trade-off is likely worth it for them. SpaceX has been making pushes into the RV cruise line mobile space over the last couple of months, gaining new partners in cruise lines like the Carnival Corporation and Thor Industries, the folks who run AIDA cruise ships. The benefit of this newer tech is that getting lucrative partnerships with cruise lines will help funnel money into better mobile Starlink development, which RV and trailer users will benefit from, but also more remote regions like Antarctica, where researchers recently praised the system's ability to connect in remote areas, and development of new functionality like the sleep mode is a Result of that RV users seem to be glad about it. I wouldn't want to pay the propane bill for an all-night snow melting machine either. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up today if you liked it. That is so important for getting our content out to more people. If you enjoy the content, then you'd probably also enjoy our weekly newsletter, so sign up with the link down below at thetislaspace. A huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters who are listed on the screen now. You help us make the best content we can and we really appreciate it. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.